Yeah, we're
We're
cooking with
live.
gas.
Yeah.
We are. So what's going on?
Just pounded a burrito and I'm feeling it. Uh I've limited myself to once a month to enjoy the burrito. This place it used to be within walking distance of the house I had before where I live now. And they're open 24 hours a day, and it was not good. I was like, it's like one of those things at like, 12:30 at night. It's like, go for a burrito or some loaded
Yeah.
nachos or something, and it's like always there. So anyway, I ran down this morning and got some burritos, and yeah, delicious.
Nice. That sounds
So
good.
yeah, what's going on with you?
All's good. Um, Busy, which is a good thing.
Yeah,
Like the good kind of busy. Just lots going on.
yeah, I hear you. Guess I should turn down my computer notifications. Yeah, busy's good though. I think
Yeah.
I can't remember who I was talking to the other day, but I was talking to someone who had left a large company and went to work for a startup, and he said, a little piece of me kind of second guesses it because I could coast there for probably 10 years and not really have to work. you
Hmm.
know, but but in the end, I don't know that that's a very enjoy. In fact, I do know. Like my first job out of college was like that you could be a real top performer, doing a quarter work, effort. Like you could really, unless you really screwed up, just coast for decades there.
Hmm.
But and people would say like, why would you ever leave this job? I'm like, it just doesn't feel fulfilling. It feels like at some point in time when you're not doing anything, it's just not enjoyable.
Yeah. I've worked with people in the past that are like that. They you could definitely tell that they're just coasting, and I don't know how people are able to do it. And it's not people say like, it's dishonest, which it is, or whatever. That's not it. I guess it's the fulfillment of work, or like, doing stuff that matters.
Yeah,
I don't know how else to word it, because every now and then, like when I get frustrated, it's just like, oh God, just to have a job that, like, I could coast, but then, it kicks back in. It's like, no, because the minute you do that, then it's going to be like you know, you're going to lament having meaningless work,
yeah,
because
yeah,
that's ultimately what it is to
yeah.
coast. You just need to do a meaningless job.
That's right. Just tick a few boxes, and you're gonna be at least a decent performer. You'll get your cost of living increase. Maybe you'll even get a bonus here and there. And it's like, okay, it's good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So no, it's just like the idea of meaningless work actually bothers me more
yeah,
than the stress of real work. And
for
it's weird.
sure.
It's like one
Yeah,
of
for
those
sure.
things you need to reset that perspective every now and then. Like when you do start to get frustrated with, like, why is this person bothering me again? Or like, God, all the meetings I have today, if I could just do a job where I can just clock in, clock out and be done. And like, yeah, then it's
Yeah,
like, but then are you doing anything that matters?
yeah. That is the question. And I think at a certain stage of your career, you want to be definitely doing stuff that matters.
Yeah, there's that, and then honestly, I think with a job where the work doesn't matter, you're going to get micromanaged. And
Yeah.
like, if there's one way for me to get pissed off with work, it's to feel like micromanaged, or to be micromanaged. Like that is just the worst feeling.
Yeah.
It's like the people that come in and want to run every bit of your day.
Yep. That's not enjoyable.
No, not at all.
Yeah. I've been there.
So tell me about this background, the virtual background you got going today. You trying to hide where you're at?
No, well, I'm trying to hide my messy background, which is this. It's not too messy, but
No, no, it's actually quite neat considering what
um
which right now is on the other side of the camera over here. A bunch of stuff from the shore house that I have to put away still.
and I was honestly playing around with it for two reasons. One, I found this funny video on YouTube of a guy. I don't think we can do it on StreamYard, but on I think Zoom you can upload like an MP4 or something as your background.
Mhm.
And he recorded a background with him walking in serving himself coffee. And it was just the funniest thing. I'm like, oh, this is amazing.
Oh, I got to
Um,
see that one now.
yeah, I'll have to dig it up and send it to you. But no, I was thinking about it in terms of kind of the pressure of being on camera, and especially when you're home. One of the interesting things when we first started interacting with people that were at home for the first time, you could tell that they've never worked remotely before, and that they were so paranoid about what their background was. That they were so paranoid that people would see that they were at home, even though we knew everyone was at home. They were paranoid, and so everyone would have these backgrounds, and it doesn't really work right. You see, it's like, I'm like, just turn it off, like be okay with it. But that's easy for me to say, having had worked remotely for like 15 years, and these are people that this is the first time they're letting others into their home and being on camera, and I could understand that it could be incredibly nerve wracking thing to do day in and day out, especially where you've never done it before. So that's all
Yeah.
I was playing around with.
Okay. Yeah. No, it was the perfect intro for today's topic.
Yeah,
Because like, yeah, like I remember when that everybody was forced to go remote, and the pandemic, we've talked about it multiple times. The pandemic greatly accelerated the move to remote work.
hmm,
You saw this movement gaining momentum, but then this pushed everybody, to work from home. And you saw the people like, they're making sure that, okay, now I have to be on camera, so I'm going to have the perfectly curated background, the
yeah,
bookshelf with the right books facing the
right,
right way,
right.
and
To
and
tell the story of me and that I'm really educated and
yeah.
yeah,
um and I mean, and obviously there's always been the jokes, the memes, the whatevers about the people who work from home, like, like they're coming in their gym clothes, they're logging
yeah.
on in their pajamas, and
I'm in my
and
pajamas.
we talked about this even before the pandemic, about how to successfully work from home.
Yeah,
And one of the things you and I came to was the need to have a routine, having a routine, and the routine being what works for the individual.
yeah,
We gave our suggestions, but the routine, and for example, my routine is a workout in the morning, get a shower, get dressed, and a couple of those things, and then come down and start work. And I mean, getting dressed is like, right now I've got a polo shirt and shoes on, or shorts on. And I'm not necessarily dressed up. It's just this is something that feels comfortable for me, and in my mind it sets this pattern of like the workday has started. um and then everybody went, full Zoom, WebEx, cameras, everything. But now fast forward just over 2 years, and people like, there's a lot of pressure people are feeling. The one is the pressure to return to the office, but
hmm,
that's not the subject of today's conversation. um, but semi related to that is those that are working remotely, the pressure to be on camera.
yeah,
Because let's say it, people working remotely have now been able to experience what it feels like to be able to determine where they work, how they work, what it means to be comfortable at work. So I started my career in financial software. So
hmm,
I worked with accountants and people in finance. Like, for the most part, there is a uniform. People that worked for banks, people who work in accounting, like there is a uniform. My uncle was also, he worked for a bank. And like I working, there was that company, like there was no such thing as casual Friday or jeans Friday. Like, it was a momentous occasion when they announced you could wear jeans to work on Fridays. It was
So
khakis.
Friday is Hawaiian shirt day. So if you have a Hawaiian shirt and you want to wear it, go ahead and do that.
Exactly. And um it was like khakis, dress shoes, button down shirts, maybe a polo shirt, but like it was it was that kind of like it was business casual. It wasn't casual casual.
Yeah.
So now people who have felt the need to have their uniform when they go to work, they realize that, hey, I can work in shorts today.
Yeah.
I'm up, I'm moving, but I just feel like wearing a t-shirt today. I can do that. But with the push to, or so with that, like just where you're at and whatnot, the push to be on camera has now become the secondary pressure people are feeling remotely. The first, again, being the push to return to the office, but those that are working remote, a lot of people are being pressured to be on webcams all day. We
Yeah.
use it here when we record the podcast. We do post the simulcast on YouTube, but really it's just to help us with like the non-verbal cues.
Yeah.
When we first started this podcast, no camera was involved, and we were just kind of at times we found ourselves guessing who's going to talk next.
Yeah. That's right.
And this rambling intro has a point. I wanted to kind of set the stage for the last 2 years and why this is an important topic to talk about. It's ultimately working remotely has given people a sense of autonomy
Hmm.
of doing the work that they want to do when they want to do it and not feeling the need to be, lorded over in the office. And I do see the problem of being pushed to use the camera all the time to be an issue. So, I mean, like, why is it a bad idea? Let's just start out with a dumb general question to get us going. Why is it a bad idea to press employees to use a webcam? Come on, it's simple. Like if you were in the office, everybody would see you. If you were in the conference room with everybody, everybody would see you. Why is it a bad idea to press for when meetings are happening, you're on camera?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. And the first thing is that it wasn't realistic in the office. If you think back to your experience working in an office, there were lots of conference calls that I'm sure you may have been on that never involved being on camera. And for some reason, since we've kind of all went remote for a period of time, there's a lot of things that are unrealistic that were never realistic in the office that all of a sudden became something that was almost felt like an unwritten requirement. It's like, well, we're not in the office, so we all need to connect and be on video. But and maybe my experience is different, but I remember working full time in an office, having lots of conference calls. Very, very few of them involve video. And if they did, it was because we were all in some wired conference room that had like this nice video system that was broadcasting to another location that had a nice video system. It wasn't we were all sitting around in our offices on individual video feeds.
Yeah, I mean, I would say my experience has been for many companies, a lot of meetings were in person. But yes, when there were some level, when there were meetings that were, conference, I think back to 20 years ago, wow, the the conference line dialing in, yeah, that was audio only. But
Yeah.
yeah, thinking back at the moment, the majority of them were in a conference room. But yeah, when there were the times where there was some kind of like dial in, there wasn't like this demand that everybody sit at their desk with their webcam on.
Yeah, and we're not talking about a time when webcams didn't exist. Like they were ubiquitous, but there was no expectation that everyone was on them. So that's number one. I think we're just trying to create an unrealistic expectation, and we're using the excuse of, well, we don't see each other in the office, so we have to always see each other on camera. But the more important discussion is that there is a lot of things to be empathetic about. That when we say, everyone has to be on camera all the time, that we're missing an opportunity to empathize with the very real pressures that may bring out. And we could probably start putting together a checklist of things that people should be concerned and thinking about. And if you're not, then you're absolutely lacking empathy with your team or whoever you're asking or demanding to be on camera all the time. And we started this conversation talking about like the intimacy of our homes, and this is like a sacred space for us. And it feels really awkward to a lot of people to just let people into their home, and that's what we're doing with the video camera. And that's why I kind of was playing around with that background, kind of like a funny thing as an intro into this topic, is that again, like a lot of that background usage was because people are hesitant to let people into their home. But not only are they hesitant, they're thinking about, what does my background say about me? To the point where, you were talking about, do I have the perfectly curated bookshelf? That absolutely is going through employees' minds. And they're thinking about, like, is my home good enough? Does it say like that I'm an employee that probably shouldn't be promoted, that I don't have quote upper management written all over me because my background isn't posh? And it's a lot of pressure just having the background. But then if we expand that out, there's a lot of pressures with the need for perfection. And I kind of made a joke about this on Twitter last week, and you can see me, like, I look like crap today. I haven't even put myself together. Like, most guys would like crawl out of a dumpster after drinking tequila all night and get on video camera and be like, I got no shame, whatever. But for women in the workplace, absolutely not. We've had decades and decades and decades. In fact, there's a lot of literature, and there's some very cringe like magazines and content out there from like the 50s and 60s about sending women to these like preparatory schools to give them manners for the workplace. And it's like, that mentality has progressed through the 2000s, where there's this unspoken rule that that there's an expectation that women are have their hair perfect and their makeup perfect and their clothes perfect. And then when we say, you have to get on camera, that's amplifying that. We have this like 1080p high def camera like right on our faces, and it's a lot of pressure, and it's an unrealistic expectation that we're expecting that of anybody. But coming from me saying, hey, everyone needs to be on camera, if I'm not empathizing with people, my female colleagues, like, they may not always feel comfortable or prepared or whatever. There are lots of reasons why the expectation of always on is unrealistic, and sometimes is very harmful. So I love the camera. I love being able to see and interact, but there's sometimes I just don't want to be on. And some of those occasions are, I want the freedom of movement. And there was this debate, which I don't know if it was the same one, or was the same thread that you saw, where there was this debate that if you're not prim and proper at your desk and on camera, you're not paying attention to the meeting. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, like, for a lot of times I like the freedom of movement, of being able to, because my brain works better if I can stand up and walk around, and maybe I want to go get some tea or maybe step outside. But if I'm on camera, it's really, really difficult to do that. Unless did you see the commercial of the guy with, speaking of green screens, the guy that has the green screen on a backpack and his laptop on this thing, and he's out on the golf course and he's like in the
No,
middle of oh, it is
I
so
did not see that one.
it's so funny. But for the rest of us, if we're on camera, I can't get up and just wander around,
Yeah.
you know?
And that's why it caught my attention, because I am one of those people that will pace. So I have a standing desk, but I go back and forth between sitting in like a propped up studio chair and
Yeah.
actually standing. I go back and forth throughout the day. And a lot of times in meetings, I got my Bluetooth headphones in, I walk, I pace. So, like, especially like meetings where maybe I'm just there to listen, doesn't mean I'm not participating. It doesn't mean I don't have my attention there, but maybe it's the pacing for me. It kind of gets me into the conversation, because we all know, like, everybody has like those kind of mechanisms to deal with distractions. Mine is to pace. And you're right. Like, if everybody needs to be on camera and you want to get up and just kind of pace around your office, then it's like, are you paying attention?
Yeah.
And there's several things you mentioned here that I want to talk about. Like, there's that part is I enjoy being on camera too, but there are times where it's just, especially after a day worth of a ton of meetings, I don't want to be on. Like, my My brain is fried. I need to remove anything else that makes me, like that makes me feel any more like worried about what am I doing, because that's also the same thing too. And you'll notice if you watch the simulcast, a lot of times, like I just kind of swivel here in the chair. I may not be looking directly at the camera. It doesn't mean I'm not participating. It doesn't mean I'm not paying attention. It's just kind of so I don't seem like I'm just staring like this the entire
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Um, there one other thing I do want to call attention to too, where you started off with people needing to be worrying about perfection.
Hmm.
Whether it's your female colleagues, as you've mentioned, anybody just feeling like I need to make sure I'm dressed up for this, or I've got the right background, any of those things for everybody. And we've talked about this time and time again. And like I had this epiphany like 10 years ago. You have in a given day, in a given week, so much capacity to think and make decisions.
Yeah.
Like I actually took like a case study on this to my boss at the time about um like me shutting off email, me blocking out my calendar and everything. Um you have like this limit for the amount of decisions you can make, questions you can answer. And it was going into like why do some people like Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, all of these people wear the same clothes to work every day. It's
Hmm.
one less decision they have to make. What am I wearing today? What am I doing today? I'm just getting it out and I'm wearing the same thing. What you're doing is making people worry about perfection. To your point, it takes away their capacity to think and perform.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of this comes down to what we measure from a business standpoint. Are we measuring the optics and appearances of things, or are we measuring the value and the output created of things? And I think that that is a huge differentiator. And when it comes to video, I think that that absolutely comes into play. And in fact, it reminds me of some of my experiences at Omniture, where it's like, well, if Jason rolls in at 9:30 and then he goes to the game room for a half hour in the afternoon, he's obviously a bad employee. But if he rolls in at 8 o'clock and doesn't leave until 5 o'clock and doesn't go to the game room at all, then he's amazing. It doesn't matter what I actually did or create during that time. It was the optics of what I was doing was most important. And I think that that's what so many people worry about from the video perspective, and I worry about when it becomes a hard firm requirement is why are we requiring that? And then back to that discussion that was happening on Twitter, are we really using it as a means to evaluate if someone is engaged in providing value in a meeting, just the fact that they're sitting there on camera? If so, that tells me that we're most likely measuring the wrong things. We're measuring the optics rather than the actual value created from the meeting. Again, if you allow me to stand up and walk around, I'm going to be more engaged and have more meaningful thought than if you force me to sit here and stare at a camera and worry if people are looking at me, or if I like pick my nose and someone catches me, or my dog walks across the background. Like all these things are going on in my head. To your point, I'm like, and I can't focus on the meeting because everyone's staring at this HD photo of Jason.
Yeah. There's one, and part of this is I feel like when the pandemic hit and everyone was forced virtual, having the camera on Zoom and WebEx, it was a novelty at first. It was cool, it was fun, and then people started to get burned out of every meeting being there. And I think people have seized on that as one more way to recreate the office remotely.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
forcing people to be on screen. And there's one client that we meet weekly to go over project status and strategy. And for the longest time, we actually had webcams on. We did. We had it on, but then as the everybody working remotely wore on, we all decided, you know what, let's just turn it off. Like this was a camera free meeting because
Hmm.
they were also now being pushed into having their camera on more and more throughout the day. And a couple of them were like, "Do you care if I turn it off?" I'm like, "No, no, go for it." In fact, actually, like, let's make it a camera free meeting.
Hmm.
And you know what? We're just as productive without it.
Yeah.
Um, And I mean, believe me, there's still, I do enjoy it. I go back and forth throughout the day. Some meetings I have it on, some meetings I have it off, and some weeks I'll have it on for a meeting, and the next week I'll have it off. I go back and forth. It's kind of the mood. I mean, and there are some fun things, and you're right, like people feeling sensitive about what's going on. I have another client, and we have a monthly one-on-one, and well, at one point we're talking, and his kids were home this one Friday, and next thing you know, his son sneaks in, creeps in behind him, and walks right up, and I start giggling. I wave. And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." I'm like, "Dude, it's fine, right?
Hmm.
It's okay, you know." He's like, "Oh, daddy, daddy be done in like 10 minutes," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine." And so we did. I'm like, let's quick wrap up, and you go have fun with the kiddos, that kind of thing. So it's you're right, like these people like are so focused on like what's happening behind them, and the kids walking in, and it's not real.
Yeah.
And not only is it making people worry about being perfect and having the perfect background and the perfect outfit on and everything. We've talked before about like the business mask or the business persona people create, the office person. Like,
Hmm.
was it it was Friends. It was Friends. If you remember this, like, I think it was when Monica and Chandler started dating, and you meet Office Chandler. He takes her to like a work event, and he's a completely different person than he is outside of work. And but it's the same thing. Everybody creates like that office version of themselves. We've talked about it plenty of times, and I think it's people being forced to put on an even stronger phony version of themselves.
Yeah, and it's a lot of pressure. So let's talk.
Pretending kids aren't at home
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff.
So let's talk about that one. So two things. Actually, I'm gonna send out a tweet right now and see if I can get some live reaction about this on Twitter. Okay, make sure I don't make any spelling errors here. Okay, I'm gonna put out a little feeler tweet to see if we can get some comments that we can chat about during the recording here. But yeah, let's talk about kids. So one of the clients that I worked with, she had a young daughter that was home. I think they were homeschooling because of the pandemic, and she had a virtual background because she didn't want her kids to be seen on camera, but she also had her finger like hovering over the mute button the whole time, like if you're watching this on YouTube, just like sitting here like ready to hit it. So if there was any kid noise, like we could quickly hit the mute. And I finally called her directly after one of the meetings and said, this is stressful for me watching you stress out. Like, what can we do to change this? What can I say to give you some comfort that like this doesn't matter to me? And a lot of times it was just me and her on the calls. It wasn't like it was a large group, and she was still incredibly nervous and stressed out about her kids being heard in the background. And I finally just said, look, like this is all of us, whether it's kids or dogs or were were you on the call where it was construction happening? No, another one of our clients. There was construction happening in their building, and she was so terrified that we'd hear like the demo, hammers pounding and whatnot. It's like, all right, we can't have this call. There's just too much noise. I'm like, I can barely faintly hear it in the background. But again, it just goes to highlight how paranoid people are of like exposing that we're not in this pristine like laboratory environment for these calls, and it's just putting the camera on it just amplifies that stress and anxiety.
Yeah, because we've all been taught that we need to be perfect, that we're on at work all the time. And that, and like I'm the type of person, it's like you do you. Not everybody is meant to work remotely. Honestly, I don't ever want to go back to an office in my life. Like, because I'm able to better manage distractions here, whereas people are better used, to better able to manage distractions in an office. So I want to put that out there. Like, one isn't better than the other. But yeah, like we're kind of conditioned that when we're at home, like, oh, our kids aren't home. Our
Yeah.
kids don't slip down to the office, like, right? Wherever our desk is, wherever we work from, like the kids aren't around, things aren't happening outside. Like at this point, I proudly talk to clients about like, yeah, weather's turning nice. I've got the patio furniture out. Any day now, I'm going to be working from the patio for part of the day.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have I'll have the umbrella up. I'll be out on the out on the couch on the patio with headphones in, enjoying the warm weather and working from there. And if I didn't tell you, you wouldn't have known.
That's right. And I took a conference call from the park the other day, and I tweeted a picture of it. We should enjoy this autonomy that we have. Is that to say that like every call we take is from the deck or from the car or from the park or from the beach? No, I mean
No, you
like
got to be an adult and pick and choose which ones you do that for.
yeah, but I mean, should we have this undue pressure on us to be in our perfectly manicured office on camera for every single one of our calls? It's unattainable, and
It's exhausting.
it is exhausting to be on. And again, if you layer on top of that the fact that we're using this as a way to measure your attentiveness or your contribution, damn, you know, like this has got a recipe for disaster written all over it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things to do is a couple things. So, number one, if you're the one organizing and scheduling meetings, I think you need to put a lot of thought into how do we handle this from a video perspective, and like be deliberate about it and think about how do we want to handle video for these calls. um Another thing from a leadership perspective, I think we need to practice again a lot more empathy. Not everyone may feel the same way we feel about being on video, and being empathetic with our team, I think, will go an incredibly long way. And the last kind of piece of advice I would say is that if you're someone that this is old hat, like you've been doing this because you've been working remotely for 20 years, help others that haven't be comfortable. Like find a way to connect with people and say, hey, like I can tell this is, nerve wracking, or, I don't expect you to be perfect, or I know you're freaking out because your kids walk in the background, but that happens to all of us and it's amazing. In fact, bring them in if you're comfortable, like just let them be. Helping our colleagues feel comfortable that this is new to them, I think can go a long way. But ultimately, I think what we're dancing around is just again this expectation that we always have to be visible because that's how it was. I liked how you put it. Like we're trying to recreate the office virtually. It just doesn't work. And for so many things, and we've touched on a few of those in past conversations, where it just feels lazy to say, well, let's do what we did in the office, but make it virtually happen. It's like, no, this is a completely new way of working. Let's be creative about it and smart about it and not recreate the office because let's be honest, the office sucked a lot of the times. Why would we ever want to recreate that? Let's find a better way of doing this.
Yeah. And I think it ultimately, one of the main benefits of working remotely, the people that have really embraced it, is the flexibility with it. The ability, like we touched on, like working from the patio, kind of going to the park. um like one of the things I plan on making part of my Friday mornings now that the springtime is here is outdoor story hour at the park is coming back. And my wife normally takes my son there in the spring and summer and fall. I'm gonna start going with them on Friday mornings. It's like 10 o'clock on Friday morning. I'll take the iPad, I'll go and like just be there and sit on a park bench, go through my notes, go through, because typically my Fridays, I've tried to structure my Fridays on a separate note to be kind of like my organization day.
Yeah.
Make sure like what did I plan to do during the week? What did how far did I get with each? What do I need to do next week so that I'm deliberate about what I get done? So I can plan for my iPad from the park while my son goes to story hour, then goes to the playground for a little bit. And I'm out there and I'm doing stuff with the two of them and not chained to a desk. Because
Yeah.
that's ultimately one of the benefits of working remotely is you're not necessarily chained to a desk.
Yeah, and I don't want to go too far off track, but you bring up a really, really valuable point that I don't think a lot of companies are thinking about in that. Oh my God, that was a massive explosion. I am so sick of living like within range of this military base.
Yeah, you've told me about that before.
That was a big one that really shook the whole house. Um, Lost my train of thought. Okay, so you have these companies that are thinking, and video is a great one because it exposes this narrative. You have a lot of companies thinking, well, we're going to beat out our competitors that are forcing their employees back to the office because we're remote. But that isn't necessarily true. There's a trap hidden in there, and that trap is that even if you are going to stay fully remote, but you're going to try to replicate the office, you're still going to lose because what these employees have felt over the last 2 years is what you mentioned is this sense of autonomy that I can control my space. Holy shit, dude, it's not good.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean, I
anyway,
can't hear anything on this end, but I'll take your word for it.
I mean, they're usually loud, but this is like very percussive, like an explosion and then like a good 1 to 2 seconds of like shake. Okay. Um, Man, yeah, it's uncomfortable feeling that. I think people get used to it, but like hearing high explosives going off, feeling high explosives going off is very unnerving to me. Um, so if you're trying to recreate what happened in the office, you're basically removing that sense of autonomy. And we've already seen this with companies that have like these tattlers on computers to like show what websites people are on or how they're spending their time. Are they active at their desk? If I always have to be on camera, I can't get up and wander around. You're destroying that sense of autonomy that comes with remote work. So in reality, while there may be a few pros, we lack the commute and other things, you're really not better off than someone that's forcing everyone back into the office. So remote is a lot more than just allowing people to work from home. Remote really is about autonomy and giving employees to design their own work environment. And whether I'm on camera or not should be a critical part of that equation. And again, if as a company I'm forcing every employee to be on camera during every meeting because I need to know if they're paying attention or not, we've got some real cultural issues that we need to work on that have nothing to do with the camera.
Yeah, totally agree. So I guess as we start to wrap this up, we've talked a lot about the issues, the pressure, that people feel, and I think a lot of it, honestly, is the pressure that you and I feel or know of or have experienced with being on camera all the time, as much as it is a tool we use. Um, what are some next steps that we could talk about, or what are some steps that both employees and employers can take here? Because it's obviously going to become a problem. Again, this is like the second. This is probably the second biggest thing employees are feeling, next to the push to return to the office. Um, uh, what are some ways that employees and employers can address this?
From the employer perspective, again, I think empathy is number one. As an employer, we need, and as a management team, as leaders of people, we need to take a step back and evaluate what our expectations are for on camera time during meetings. And if we're viewing that through the lens of how I feel about being on camera all the time, that's not good enough. We have to think about the totality of our team and empathize and try to put ourselves in their shoes and understand the pressures and stresses that they may be under. Um, Number two, as an organization, we need to take a deliberate approach to designing how we make meetings work. Again, just showing up and having it be organic if people are on camera or not may not be the right approach at first, because what ends up happening is if you have a overwhelming number of people that feel like they need to be on camera, whether they want to or not, they're going to turn on the camera. And then that's going to drive everyone else to either turn on the camera even though they don't want to, or leave it off and then have the fear of, I'm one of two people on this 14 people meeting that have their camera off. What are they thinking about me? And so we really need to think through how we're designing this in such a way that we're empathetic with all of our employees. From an employee perspective, again, I think we need to get comfortable with doing what is best for us. If I don't feel comfortable being on camera today, don't be on camera. Don't make concessions. If we're meeting with someone and maybe they're outside of our organization and we can sense that they're uncomfortable, let's have humanistic conversations about it. Let's just address it instead of trying to play it off. Let's say, hey, it feels like this is a stressful situation. Would it be better if we turned off cameras? I don't need to be on camera. I'm not worried about what you have in the background. Let's be a bit more authentic in those conversations. And I guess that goes to my last point is, one of the things that we hope gets destroyed with a move to a more hybrid work environment is this need to put on the corporate uniform and play a role. And that by continuing this expectation of video is continuing that putting on the corporate uniform mentality, that, to your point, and I really love the visual of, we only have so many brain cycles to think about and solve problems and work on complex things. Why should we be wasting any of that playing the corporate role of, is my background right? Am I dressed right? Is my hair in the right way today? Am I focused on the camera enough? Like, that comes at a cost of us not being able to use that mental energy to actually solve something valuable for the company. And so really that's a long-winded way of saying, let's stop worrying so much about the optics of things and worry about what we're actually doing and creating as employees, as a team, as a company. What are your thoughts?
You summed it up really well. Very concisely what needs to be done, and I mean, I think as an employee, if there is any ambiguity, any concern that you have about using it or not using it, clear the air with
Mm-hmm.
whoever you need to clear the air with, because I think one of the pressures that we didn't talk too much again about using this is it the worry of, if I don't regularly use the web camera, just because I'm not in the mood, or like I'm just not feeling it today, or there have been times, like, honestly, my morning workouts run long and I had to jump on an early morning call, and I am finishing up working out and jumping right on to the laptop. So I am in no
Yeah.
condition, like I just came from the gym
Yeah.
kind of thing. Um, where I'm going with this is, like the pressure of, if I'm not using my camera like everybody else is, does that impact my future? Does that impact how people see me? Clear the air.
Yeah.
And you may get an answer you don't like. Let's be blunt and honest. You may get an answer you don't like, where it's like you're hoping for the, listen, if you use it when you're comfortable, don't use it when you're not, whatever. You're hoping for that, but you're going to run across those people, let's be blunt, that say, no, man, I want everybody on camera all the time. And if you don't like it, yeah, I second guess what you're doing.
Yeah.
I doubt that you're paying attention. I second guess that you are where you're at. You're hiding something from me. Clear the air, and if that's that's the answer you don't like, maybe that's a sign that you need to do something elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like, because that is part of it. Like, the hope is that you're able to have an adult productive conversation, and the camera, it's, most people see it as a nice to have, it's a good to have, it's, let's use it to be productive, but it's not a must have. I would say be prepared at times to run into people that are saying, no, this is an absolute must have.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it's not easy. I think, there are personality types and people that are more tenured in their career that may be more comfortable having that conversation, but it's not easy having those conversations. But you're spot on in that it probably tells you everything you need to know about the culture of the organization you're working for, and it may not be a place that you want to stay long term.
Yeah. Like, if it's something where you want to work in a place that is going to be okay with autonomy, that they're going to trust you, that you are where you say you are without having to turn a camera on. If that's what you want and the response is, but you get something different, just saying it, it's worth considering that, that's not the right fit for you.
Yep, that's absolutely right.
And going back to what you said earlier, people are getting more and more of a taste of working remote. Like
Hmm.
people who years ago would tell me I could never work from home, I can never do this, I can never do that. They got a taste of what it's like to not have to worry about having a set of work clothes. You know, the
Hmm.
khakis, the shirts that are ironed and stuff. They could be a bit more relaxed, and they're getting a taste of that. Or yeah, we're going to get an Airbnb at the shore and we're going to do a long weekend. And I'm going to do a bit of work Friday morning and I'm going to do a bit of work Monday morning and then I'm going to go to the beach. People are getting that kind of taste. So they're going to be looking for the companies that are like, yeah, webcam, that's great if you want to. If not, no big deal.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
So this has been fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Good conversation.
it is, and I love coming back to the remote work topic because I've loved watching this whole situation evolve over the last 2 years. It's real, yeah. The remote work situation, that is. Let me clarify. um,
Hmm. Hmm.
Watching it evolve because, like, I mean, I've always enjoyed working remotely. Like, I mean, there was one company I was working for, God, 15 years ago, 16 years ago, and I was like, listen, you know, I don't need to be in the office every day. There's ways I can at that point dial into the office, like, you know, the VPN, like there were certain things on site I needed to be there for. Like it was, you know, it was before the cloud was really the cloud.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it's funny looking back at how things like that have evolved over the years. You know, like there was databases that existed on site. There wasn't just a cloud thing. So, yeah, like there was like VPN usage, and VPN was not great. It was slow. It was bad, especially from some of the stuff that I was doing. But there were still ways I could do it. And I was like, why can't I work from home 2 days a week? It'd be nice. I could relax a bit more and everything. And people just weren't embracing it. So now that kind of seeing where it's at now, this is great.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, because I'm telling you right now, the weather is turning, and I'm going to have a couple Fridays coming soon where I'm going to send you a picture from me working from the boardwalk with the ocean in front of me.
That's why we do this.
Yep, that's why we do it.
Yep.
So camera be damned.
That's right. And if you're going to have a camera, make sure you're snapping photos of the amazing places you're working from because you have the autonomy and freedom of movement to do your work anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, so as we wrap up, did you get any hits on that Twitter post?
No, every time I try to post it, like if I would have posted this not during a recording, it would have got like 15
It would have
comments already.
blown up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
cool.
All
All
right.
right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up from here at this point, and we'll catch everybody later.
All right. See you.
See ya.